have a special closer for today's formal program. She is the top figure in the United States intelligence community, a challenging role at any time, but especially at a time of great global change. And we appreciate that she could join us here today. Here to introduce this distinguished keynote speaker is Jennifer Beatley, Group Vice President for Intelligence and Homeland Security at Oracle. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Good afternoon. As Ronda said, I'm Jennifer Beatley, Group Vice President for Intelligence and Homeland Security at Oracle. I'm honored to introduce this afternoon's keynote speaker of GEOINT 2025. The Honorable Director Tulsi Gabbard's life is defined by her unwavering commitment to service and her love of country. From her earliest days in public office to her extensive military career, she has dedicated her life in service to protect the safety, security, and freedom of the American people and our nation. The people of Hawaii elected Director Gabbard to the state legislature when she was 21 years old, to the Honolulu City Council 8 years later, and at age 31 to the United States Congress, where she served for 4 terms. Having experienced firsthand the true cost of war, the director vowed to honor the lives and sacrifice of her brothers and sisters in uniform, serving on the Armed Services, Homeland Security, and Foreign Affairs committees in Congress. A combat veteran with 3 deployments to the Middle East and Africa as part of a special operations mission to counter terrorism, Director Gabbard has served in uniform since 2003. She approaches every issue, domestic and foreign, with a focus on ensuring safety, security, and freedom of the American people. She's committed to securing the nation, upholding the Constitution, and serving the American people. Like Director Gabbard, Oracle is committed to protecting the nation, and we are honored to partner with Director Gabbard and the intelligence community. At Oracle, we are a cloud computing company whose roots are founded in data management. Our mission is to help our customers see data in new ways, discover insights, and unlock endless possibilities. Our very first customer was from the intelligence community, and since our founding in 1970, we've supported not only intelligence agencies, but all public sector customers with on-premises, hybrid, and cloud solutions at every classification level. Our technology aligns to the D&I strategy, and we are honored to be a trusted industry partner on these initiatives. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, the Honorable Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence.
It is a true privilege to be here to join you today. I want to just first start by saying the most important thing, which is thank you. Whether you are working within the United States government or you're working in private industry, all of us are gathered here today centered around what is our most important and core function and mission, which is securing our nation's liberty and the American people. I got to tell you, I agreed to come here as soon as I got the invitation. I've been very much looking forward to coming here, but then after I agreed, I started to think about what I would talk to all of you about. I am just a normie who has been a consumer of much of your work throughout my career, both in the military and in politics. I won't even begin to try to impress you with any technical lingo, but no, the most important thing that I can share with you really is the value of what you are doing every single day. You know, geospatial intelligence, as you know, is not a topic that's often discussed around the dinner table. As a former member of Congress, I can tell you it is not often talked about in the halls of Congress, mostly because people don't understand it beyond the superficial. It's highly complex and specialized field that even many who benefit from your expertise really couldn't articulate with any kind of specificity. But what's most important is that when we take a step back, we understand that geospatial intelligence is at the heart of our country's history, and certainly at the heart of our military history. I'm a soldier, so forgive me for being Army-centric, but there's a reason that Thomas Jefferson established the United States Military Academy at West Point, not to train infantrymen, but to train engineers. And that's because he understood that war requires, yes, battlefield leaders, but it would specifically require engineers and surveyors, the makers of maps and the works upon them, to come into being, to support those leaders. Today, as we fast forward to where we are, obviously our challenges are more complex. The tools that you are providing are profoundly different, but your role and the importance of it to the American people is precisely the same. There is a direct through line from George Washington surveying the great frontier of wild Appalachia to pioneers and explorers charting westward paths, to you and your colleagues integrating data and analysis on a distant land and delivering it to policymakers and our military at operational speed. We go back over 4 decades ago for an example. Prior to the US invasion of Grenada in 1983, the Army operational planners at Fort Bragg got together to plan this operation and then discovered that they had no maps. So a division staff officer did what good staff officers do. He headed for downtown Fayetteville, procured tourist maps of the island, and brought them back to the planners, who then superimposed a military grid on top of that map and distributed copies to the invading troops before they boarded their aircraft. Finding solutions. Once the battle kicked off, however, the various services learned that coordination of fires was exceptionally difficult, if not impossible, because they were not operating from a common map or locational references that they could all use. So this acute problem of inadequate geospatial intelligence moved very quickly from the realm of utter absurdity from a planning standpoint to the effect of life and death implications. So in this example, it can very easily be translated to the modern day landscape that we are operating in to see the indispensability of your effort, your professionalism, and the capabilities and solutions that you are bringing every day. Now, President Trump and his administration has made very clear that he views foreign policy in the world through a lens of realism. And within the context, making decisions of what's in the best interest of the American people and our security. The goal is always peace, deterrence, while also maintaining that state of readiness should war as a last resort to defend our nation be required. This readiness is what you enable, doubling down on your work to ensure the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. The President has made it clear America cannot, will not, and should not be the world's police. We are rooted in American history, ideally learning from failures of the past, and focused squarely on the American interest. In this, we take to heart the wisdom of John Quincy Adams when he said that America, quote, goes not abroad in search of monsters to destroy, lest she no longer be the ruler of her own spirit. Now, many of us in this room are part of a generation that has lived through what happens when that wisdom is discarded. However, this policy and this approach, this view of the world should not be seen as isolationist. We must act within the best interest of our nation, engage in diplomacy with friends, partners, allies, and yes, adversaries, I would say especially adversaries in the pursuit of peace and prosperity. And we in the intelligence community, at our best, play a critical role in ensuring that our nation's leaders and policymakers are best informed as they make these decisions. So you are the ones who are enabling not just American policy, but strategy that's being executed in real time. Nearly a century ago, there was a scholar named Alfred Korzybski who coined the phrase, "The map is not the territory," referencing the perennial challenge of matching observation and orientation, and therefore representation, to reality. It's a challenge that American geospatial intelligence meets better than anyone, anywhere. Now we collectively face an array of challenges and opportunities. Many of them you are discussing here at this symposium, with incredible innovators joining you with the latest tools and methodologies to support this critical work. I had the chance to walk around the hall and visit some of you before coming here this morning, and to a person was thoroughly impressed with the innovation and the problem-solving mindset that I saw on display. Thomas Jefferson's first Corps of Engineers out of West Point, ready to survey a virgin continent, would have looked upon all that is happening here with awe, but also with some familiarity and with recognition, because they would have seen at once the fundamental continuity between their mission and yours. So the tools at hand for the general public, not just their government, are also extraordinary and surpass those available even via classified means a mere generation back. When we look at the general understanding and application of geospatial intelligence, it comes down to a person not involved with the government or the military with a laptop who's able to call up detailed and commercially available imagery and mapping of the world's most distant corners, something unimaginable even a decade ago. I remember when we used to have to go online and print out MapQuest maps to get directions to go from one place to another. But just as we are evolving and leading in our innovation, so are our adversaries. So with all of this, the question is, how do we maintain our excellence? How do we maintain our competitive edge in geospatial intelligence? Now, Ronda and I are going to be talking here in a few minutes to discuss exactly this, and we'll be taking a few questions from you. But I just want to highlight two important things that I believe inform the rest. The first is that the advancements of America's innovative and dynamic commercial sector are indispensable to the retention of American dominance in geospatial intelligence. Many of the problems that I have seen just in the short time that I've served in this role are when people in government, with the best of intentions, try to solve problems that someone in the private sector has solved 10 times better. This integration of those who work in the government and those who are bringing solutions in the private sector has to be better integrated in order for us to meet mission success. Within this, of course, is the advent of artificial intelligence, which is already transforming nearly every sphere of endeavor. It is the buzzword. Everybody's talking about it. I was back in Washington around Inauguration Day and meeting people that I had known when I was in Congress several years before. And these are people who had worked in very different sectors. Now everybody's doing AI. I questioned then and still now, how many of them actually know what they're doing? This becomes especially clear when we look at the synthesis between intelligence domains, between human signals and geospatial, which when combined can generate awareness well beyond what could be achieved with each pillar in mere isolation, and of course well beyond what the unaided person, restrained by man-hours and individual expertise, could plausibly achieve. There's no replacement for humans in life or work, including in geospatial intelligence, but we have to look at this challenge as an opportunity to change our roles. The analyst of the very near future must add to his or her toolkit the ability to understand, engage, and direct AI for the amplification and maximization of their own work and capabilities. The second thing I want to emphasize is that we never stop asking ourselves, how do we maintain our qualitative edge? And in seeking the answers, we fulfill our mission, our charge to defend the American people. There's a popular quote, erroneously attributed to Churchill or Orwell, depending on the source that you read. It says, people sleep peaceably in their beds at night because tough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf. Whatever the attribution, it expresses a truth that those who wear the uniform understand well and voluntarily accept. But the reality is that by the time violence is required, there is by definition a failure that occurred. The true success of a policy is when the American interest is met, American liberties are secured, and no violence is necessary. As the Director of National Intelligence, answerable to the President, who answers to the American people, our mission focus for the intelligence community is this: Our work is not first and foremost the winning of conflict. It is the prevention and deterrence of it. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gabbard, for those insightful comments. I understand that in the wake of 9/11, you made a decision to begin a life of service. And interestingly, the ODNI was stood up in the wake of intelligence failures following 9/11. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, your personal journey, and then, holy cow, you're the top intelligence official at ODNI now.
I certainly couldn't have mapped that out for myself. I was born in American Samoa, grew up in Hawaii, and experienced and knew from a relatively young age that I was happiest when I was doing things for others, trying to be of service to God and to make a positive impact on other people's lives. And initially, I started with a nonprofit as a teenager, focused on the environment and clean water. But eventually, as we talked about a few minutes ago, kept asking how and where can I make more of a positive impact?
Yes.
And that's really been the driver of the big decisions I've made in my life. But started out in the Hawaii State Legislature, and ultimately was driven to enlist in the military because of the attacks on 9/11, and knowing that I felt a sense of duty and responsibility to go after those who attacked us on that day. And enlisted and ended up serving in a medical unit, and my first deployment was to Iraq in 2005.
Okay. So I loved I loved all of what you had to say, but in your ending you said, our focus for the IC is this. Our work is not first and foremost the winning of conflict, but the prevention and the deterrence of it. Amen to that. So as the top intelligence official in the IC, how are you focusing the IC missions prioritized by the administration today, including things like border security, counterterrorism, and counter-narcotics?
Yeah, well, this was, when the president nominated me for this position, I know you would be surprised to know that I had some vocal critics. But the number one criticism that I heard was, oh, well, she didn't spend a career working in the intelligence community. But as someone who served in uniform for over 22 years and served in Congress for 8 years on the Foreign Affairs and Armed Services Committees, I had been a customer of intelligence for a long time and had a lot of firsthand frustrations based on the products that were being delivered. And I won't go into the detail, but I'll tell you, a lot of folks in Congress have the same frustrations today, which is intelligence, in order for it to be useful, has to be timely, has to be relevant, and it has to be objective and unbiased. So again, I didn't foresee myself being in the position that I'm in now, but bring that experience to our mission set to make sure that our policymakers are getting that intelligence that meets those 3 benchmarks and is being delivered at operational speed. With everything that's happening in the world right now, our president is leading negotiations for peace on many different fronts in the world. Being able to deliver that timely intelligence is the difference between something best informing his and the cabinet's decisions towards peace and towards deterrence, or it being useless because it's come too late, or it's not providing that complete picture that he needs to be able to make important calls. You mentioned the latest focus on the border. The designation of cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. This is a new front in many ways. There hasn't been an emphasis on collection in this area, so immediately ramping up that focus, it's the biggest shift in collection priorities in ODNI's history, specifically to get after this challenge so that we have the awareness of what does this landscape look like. It's going to bring a lot of unique challenges given this is right on our doorstep, both in our southern and northern borders, as we look at counter-narcotics and counter-cartel operations that will most importantly require, yes, it's collection, but it is that fusion and complete understanding that requires our national intelligence capabilities working very closely with federal, state, and local law enforcement, who in this case are the frontline element on the ground. When we talk about boots on the ground in the traditional sense, we have local law enforcement, we have Customs and Border Patrol. They all have to be operating from that same picture in order for us to be effective, and we can't have these silos, both information and intelligence. Otherwise, we will not only waste a lot of time and money, but we will be creating more risk.
Absolutely. So the mission of the ODNI is to lead intelligence integration and to forge intelligence community collaboration and to deliver insightful intelligence. And you've highlighted, as in your brief tenure, the need to rebuild trust. Our current NGA director, I've heard him often describe GEOINT as the discipline that provides the truth. In your experience and in your current position, how can the GEOINT community lead the way in enhancing transparency and building trust?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what is required. To rebuild trust, it requires that transparency that isn't biased in one direction or another. Whether it's for or against a certain policy, there's nothing that can dispute a very clear picture of the landscape that we are operating in. It'll either show us what we hope or what we expect, or the opposite may be true. But by providing that ground truth, it must help inform the decisions that are being made. The integration that is required within the ODNI has improved dramatically since the post 9/11 era, but obviously there's a lot of room for growth. We're looking at things, for example, like open source contracting across the board. We're looking at how do we streamline contracts for multi-use cases across the intelligence community so that we can save a lot of money and make sure that our IC elements are getting the most bang for the buck and the capabilities that many of you provide. OSINT is an area of relatively new focus from Congress, but I've heard from many of you here today and those who are operating in different parts of the world how we are, in this example, limiting our capabilities because of our own authorities that don't allow for that access to integrate OSINT with the other intelligence capabilities that we have. Really, it's the integration of every form of our collection that best sets us up for success. HUMINT is a critical and important slice of the pie, but it is one. SIGINT, same. GEOINT, the same. OSINT, the same. We can really maximize maintaining that qualitative edge when we are maximizing all of our collection capabilities across the board.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you. I am going to share all of these questions for you, and
Great.
It will probably take you the entire ride home in the plane, too. So continue sending them. Director Gabbard is one of the most open and approachable people that I've had the honor to meet, and I hope that you will be able to learn a little bit more about our community through their very kind and insightful interactions. So I want to dig a little bit more into commercial capabilities and integrating commercial capabilities into government missions. What do you see as the greatest opportunity to nudge traditional IC approaches and take more risk by adopting industry innovation, and not only adopting it, but adopting it faster?
Yeah, I mean, this is the challenge and the opportunity. The challenge oftentimes is within our archaic procurement laws that don't really help us meet our objective. When we say, here's the capability that we need, who is offering the best solution that can help us drive towards delivering that capability. I spoke with some of you out here. It's something I've known for a long time. Small businesses often may be the ones who have that capability because you're small and you're agile and nimble and able to get after a problem set perhaps bigger, more quickly than a bigger business or contractor, but you don't have the ability to get inside the door and make your pitch. We have to do a better job internally of education and culture to make it so that those who've been working in the intelligence community for a long time, who by no fault of their own end up being limited by living and working in a SGIF every single day and not connecting what's happening in the real world to the work that they're doing, and also in some cases being afraid of being replaced by AI and therefore not being open to the multitude of options that won't replace humans, as I said, but can actually make it so that your time is better spent and that we are getting the most out of every person who works in the intelligence community, and that can kind of open new horizons for what's possible and the products that we can deliver faster with better quality to those who need them the most. I see nothing but opportunity here. We've got some doors to kick down and some barriers to break through, but ultimately, this is the time to do it. We've got a president who is interested in delivering solutions, and it's an opportunity for us to really question, and this is something I'm doing in my own organization and across the IC, as someone coming in from the outside, asking the questions that no one has dared to ask for a long time. But I'm finding in many cases these are the questions that have to be asked, because oftentimes when I'm asking, why are we doing it this way? What are we trying to get after? And the response is like, this is just the way we do it. This is the way we've been doing it for 10 years and 20 years. Like, okay, is there a better way? I don't know, maybe. I'm excited to go to work every day because of this opportunity to kind of breathe some new oxygen and some new life in making it so that what we are doing in the intelligence community is operationalized in real time, that we don't have intelligence just for the sake of having intelligence.
Amen to that. Wow. So the theme of our conference is building a secure future together. Mm-hmm. A secure tomorrow together. And I know who wrote it. So let's talk about partnerships. You dabbled a little bit in the human-machine teaming, that's a partnership. We've talked about our academic partners. We have 44 academic institutions represented here this week.
Amazing.
We've talked about our industry partners. We've talked about government to government. And of course, our international partners. We have 400 international guests here this week. What's your perspective on partnerships?
They're essential. If we try to do anything alone, we'll fail. I've probably met at this point with close to 60 of my counterparts from different countries around the world, both in foreign travel as well as those who are coming to Washington, D.C. And it's always very interesting to see the unique capabilities even some very small countries in far-flung parts of the world have that we don't have. And so obviously we bring capabilities that they don't have. And so having these partnerships, intelligence sharing agreements, really are a force multiplier for us, and again, allow us to focus on the things that we really need to focus on rather than thinking we can be everything in all places all the time. Again, I think the same thing goes for the partnerships that we have here. I talked with Gary a little bit earlier about some of the bright students that you have here. You said you have high school students and college students, but that the challenge is that there are not enough people, young people who are interested in joining this field, and I've heard this from the NGA commander as well. So having these partnerships between academia, creating an open window for those who are going through college or high school to look at what opportunities that exist. I got to believe that whether it's in the private sector or in the military, there would be a lot of excitement as people look to this fusion of the traditional way of doing things with the technology that's available and quickly evolving to be the leaders of a really new frontier of geospatial intelligence. So the partnerships that we have and that we're looking to continue to grow really are essential for us to be able to succeed, but also for us to not be left behind.
All right, the questions are still rolling in. So the mission of USGIF, we stood up 21 years ago, just a year before OD and I, to help build this then nascent tradecraft, to help bring together our community in forums like this and to spur innovation. You had a chance to visit the show floor. Any takeaways you want to share with us?
I mean, I was inspired. I knew that I would come here and be impressed, but it was just great for me to see some of the innovations and ways that you are bringing such huge value to our mission set. I've seen a lot of the products of your work without knowing it is your work, but to be able to connect those dots to something that we'll bring to the president during his President's Daily Brief, knowing now, having met some of you, that it is your technology that had a hand in the creation of that product. It's an awesome and exciting thing to see, and again, inspiring to see those of you who've worked in the intelligence community before, those of you who've served in the military or in special operations, and you've been downrange, and you've started your company specifically because you were down and on the line, as they say, saw a problem, and instead of just shrugging your shoulders saying, God, I wish somebody would fix this, you've actually taken those steps to be that solution because you speak the language, you know the experience, and you know exactly what needs to be done. I can't overstate how important and critical that is, again, for us to make the best use of taxpayer dollars and shorten that distance between those who are experiencing the problems and hoping for a solution and those of you who are delivering it.
All right, we've gotten several budget-flavored questions. Any comments overall on Iron Dome? That is a very big topic for this community, especially a community that has R&D dollars and an academic community that is eager to do research towards our future.
Yeah. I can't say much on, I think you're referring to the Golden Dome.
Golden Dome, thank you.
I can't say much about it other than obviously this is a priority for the president that has a direct nexus and prioritization between the Department of Defense and the intelligence community. The work that you do and the work that NGA does and NRO does, Space Command will take a central role in this. I know that plans are being made, and we are committing funds for this initial planning and R&D phase. But beyond that, more to follow.
All right. If the answer is to no, this is fine. I've gotten this question 3 times.
Okay.
Any thoughts on the $150 billion reconciliation bill and how that might impact geospatial intelligence?
I can speak to our portion of the bill, and I think the Congress and the President's recognition of the importance of this work, we have largely been able to protect the dollars and the budgets that we had planned that have been included in this bill as of now. As you know, nothing is done until it's done, and there's still more work to be done on this in Congress. But other parts of the government have seen severe cuts, but again, thankfully this is an area where congressional leaders, as well as leaders within the cabinet and OMB, we've conveyed our priorities, and those priorities have been heard and largely protected so far.
All right, thank you.
We'll see.
I like it.
I've been there. It's not a pretty process, nor does it often make sense.
So I really appreciate that you understand the need for automation in our industry. I am a recovering imagery analyst. It's been a long time with old school film, and I'm excited about automation. I'm excited not to have a clicker and counting each piece of equipment that I'm seeing on imagery, and my imagery teacher is right over here. There's more and more resources, there's more and more modalities. Artificial intelligence is necessary for us not only to gain more insights, but to gain them more quickly, to get them to the boots on the ground, to the decision makers. What do you see as the impediments to us bringing this type of technology to bear at scale, and how can we kick down those doors?
I really think that the first and biggest obstacle is just a lack of understanding of AI, not only of its capabilities, but because of this lack of understanding, there's a lot of fear in what machine learning can be or is. And so I was speaking with a couple of folks earlier who are running into this challenge in that they often hear people view AI just as a tool and it's its own thing, and you go and plug it in and who knows, we'll see what happens, rather than seeing it for what it is in how it can be and really is built to be that quickly evolving learning tool to make it so that what the analyst is trying to build, whether it's an assessment around the dynamics of what's happening in Yemen with the Houthis, and you have the Saudis and the Emiratis, and you have all of these different players there in providing that full assessment, or you're building out a picture of something that's been happening in an area of interest, and you're trying to track activity of different elements within that area. I think getting over that barrier of lack of understanding and therefore fear is the biggest challenge. And I think there are unique ways. Your organization, I think, is uniquely positioned to do this, but those who are also providing tools that are solutions in really breaking it down into the practical use cases that you can demonstrate, both, yes, to the policymakers, but really to the customers to, again, try to eliminate that fear and start opening up the sight picture into what's possible and how you can do so much more. One person can do so much more with the right tools at their fingertips. I think once we break through that, then there will be a lot more, I think there will be a lot more openness and excitement about how we can best use AI within the national security space and the intelligence community.
All right. Here's a creative one from the audience. Do you see a future where we treat models themselves like digital personnel, with controlled access, chain of custody protocols, and even clearances for certain training environments? What do you think?
I can imagine Elon Musk's answer to this question. I mean, I don't know. I don't know is the short answer. I think that, even a couple of years ago, a conversation around AI would not come anywhere near how AI is being used today. So, in the general sphere of things, perhaps anything is possible. But I think this is where some of the fear comes in is how can AI be used, but with the confidence that the learning and the modeling is done in a way that it reflects the needs and the direction of both the operators, but also the policymakers. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Fair. We talked a little bit about this earlier, and this is a question from the audience, so on point. How can we reform, change, evolve, maybe is a good word, the federal contracting process to enable small and innovative companies, and I know that you met with at least one on the floor, to work more directly with the government to help solve critical problems, in parentheses, rather than having to work under big primes to get started?
Yeah, well, this is something that I know the Deputy Secretary of Defense is taking on as his #1 priority. specifically to reform this procurement process in order to open it up to allow the government to very easily find that best solution, whoever and wherever, whoever may be bringing it to the table. It's something within the intelligence community. Again, we're looking at how we can reform our own contracting. How do we open it up so that we don't always just go back to the same prime that's been used over and over and over again? How do we make sure when we're bringing in a startup, for example, who may just have a simple solution to be a single source, provide a single source HR contract that can be used across all of the IC elements? How do we make sure there's not another second or third layer of contractors built on top of that to supervise, and then have another layer of supervisors to supervise the supervisors? These are the kinds of things that we're running into that are not only a waste of money, but again, actually creating a more constrained environment, again, for a startup or a small business who's got a unique solution to a problem that we need solved at a much cheaper price for the American taxpayer than we've seen for a long time. One of the challenges here is that there is some internal resistance. This is where the revolving door can be dangerous, where you've got folks who are working in the intelligence community who've made friends with the big prime and they want to get a job as they go out the door, and they're kind of, seeding the landscape for that. We've ultimately got to remember our responsibility is to the American people, and make sure that we're delivering solutions as good stewards of their money, and cognizant of the mission that we need to deliver on.
Okay. So you're 4 months into the job.
Almost, yes.
Almost. What's your biggest surprise so far? You must have had expectations entering office, and now you're here mid-May. What's your biggest surprise?
One thing that I've seen and found so refreshing is that as I've started to make some changes within OD&I, but really across the IC, I sent out an initial message basically saying, I want to know from you, wherever you may work, what problems you are seeing that need to be fixed. Feel free to reach out to me directly. Almost immediately, I started getting emails and Skype messages from people reaching out directly saying, thank you for asking. No one's ever asked me before. I got an email this morning from a woman who is been working in the IC for over 20 years, and she pointed out a very specific problem that happens to be affecting her, but it affects a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, it was something I had already identified. I replied to her email, I think an hour later, and said, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're working toward to solve that specific problem. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. And so I'm just grateful that folks are contacting me directly, so that I can make sure that the bureaucracy isn't burying the real problems that exist, because it gives us an opportunity to actually try to get after the solution to those problems. It's refreshing.
Excellent. Well, we have a very active community here. Thank you for your questions, and I will share these with your team to share back with you. I look forward to working with you in the coming months and years. Thank you so much for being here today. Everyone, please join me in thanking Director Gabbard for sharing her insights.
Thank you so much, everybody. Great to see you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was really great.
Appreciate you.
We'll talk again. Okay.